come across me every now and then. So what we're going to do today is actually, some of the students didn't show up. So number one, we've got a few ringers on the panel. And at this point, I would like to ask any of you in the audience if you have ever taken an online class and you would like to be on this panel, please come right up and we will fabulous. You know, we talk to each other a fair bit, and that's always pleasurable. And we talk to our students in our own classes, but this is really a rare opportunity to talk to students as a group, find out what's working for them in the online environment, what they'd like to improve, what they like about it, et cetera, et cetera. So we have about, 50 minutes before lunch, which I see is assembling itself outside. And the first thing we're going to do is actually go through the panel, ask you to do a quick introduction of yourself, talk about your major perhaps, and how many classes you've taken online. So we'll start next to me.
Hi, my name is Keith Hassett. So I probably taken over 20 classes online. Like the gentleman in the reindeer shirt said, I've been overseas for 5 years, so this really benefited me. I've been in Africa, Middle East. This is my first time back, so it's kind of taking a little reality actually to be back in a classroom setting. And my major is communications. I actually get a transfer next semester. I'll be going to school with my niece, so I'm kind of excited.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Michael Timog. I just got my MA from SDSU in Learning Design and Technology, which is essentially instructional design. And I've taken about maybe 7, 8 classes online, including my undergraduate. And they've ranged from small section discussion online classes to massively online courses.
Hi, my name is Nora Dosky. I have taken around 6 to 7 classes online. My major is undecided as of now, but yeah, that's about it.
I'm Eric Nunes. My major was linguistics at the time. I've taken probably half a dozen online classes, different kind of math and graphic design, and it's a wide variety, I guess.
Debbie Thomas, adjunct professor, hospitality, Mesa College. Went back to school for 2 years, got another degree in international hospitality management and in another university, and just 2 years ago, and have a real keen idea of what I liked and what I didn't like about the online environment.
Dolores Lodell, faculty for Miracosta College teaching accounting, and I recently went through an online certification program through Cal State East Bay. All the classes were online, obviously, and it's kind of the same thing. Have some ideas about what worked and what didn't work.
Okay, great. Thank you all. So let's start generally. What has been the biggest benefit for you in taking online classes? More specifically, what tool or method of instruction has been most meaningful to you? And perhaps, what kept you from dropping out when other students did? And anybody can talk.
Yeah, I'll start off there. So the big thing, the benefit for me is that I can actually take the course pretty much when I want to. I have the advantage of basically being in a time zone 12 hours ahead of everybody, which was kind of nice. But it gave us a little more flexibility as far as the assignment was due Sunday night at midnight versus if you're in class, you're getting a little more structured and pushed towards that. I work better on my own, which a lot of people, I just had to do a speech on group studying. I had a hard time with it because I actually do better on my own, and that's the advantage for me. When other people are dropping out of class, I think that's when you're in a junior college environment, it goes on both sides, so it's either in class or online, that people just struggle with that. I've got a few years on people, so I've been through a lot as far as this is just an easier way to do things, and I've got Google. I can search anything at the same time I'm actually on a course. trying to get my information. I mean, I tease my daughter, she got her master's. It's so much easier for her nowadays that she can do a search on things. Back in my day, when we actually still had to look up a word in a dictionary, it was a little tougher. And as long as you can follow a structure on Blackboard, some people put it in a different spot, but the assessments, the homework, and the modules are all pretty much the same, and it's an easy structure to follow.
Okay, we have another student that I'd love to introduce. If you could just say hello, tell us who you are, your major, and maybe how many online classes you've taken.
I'm Eileen Baker. My major is psychology, and I have 5 online classes.
Great.
Yes.
Great, good to see you. So that 12-hour time difference, Keith, didn't cause problems for you? Or?
No, not at all. It was actually a benefit as far as I was actually ahead of the whole class. And there's also this thing of, since people really don't know you, they don't know my age. There's no judgment on age, which I'm sure there is when I walk in, because people assume I'm the professor when I walk in originally. And then they're like, really, are you a student? And it kind of throws them off. And the majority of the time, I'm actually probably their parents' age. And then I took an ethnics class, history class, and nobody knows me. So I can be in there and nobody ever questions anything why I'm in this course, and it's an awesome thing for me. But the 12 hours was a benefit for me. I mean, it was definitely a benefit.
So the anonymity is a good thing.
It is. On that side, it is. I mean, I know more and more professors asking to post a video yourself or tell a little bit about yourself, and the majority of them actually post some videos, so you get a little personal on them, which is actually kind of a cool thing. But there's also that not too many questions asked.
Okay. Michael, Nura, Eric, anybody want to jump in here? The biggest benefits for you for taking online classes, what's worked for you the best?
I think for me, it's learning. It's kind of like the opposite of what Keith was saying. It's learning how to work or learning how to learn from other people's experiences. So he was saying earlier that he had a 12-hour difference. I've had a couple of projects online where I would work with people from Japan, China, and the Far East, basically, and because that's where they were at, and learning how to find the compromise to work within each other's time constraints. That was an interesting challenge because just logistics-wise and stuff. But you would also learn more about how things would operate, because I'm a full-time student. I've been a full-time student since 18. So hearing somebody who has work experience and hearing what they would recommend to do in a certain situation has benefited me the most. To actually hear the theory that you're hearing inside of a classroom being applied by somebody else and being living proof of that has been the biggest benefit for me.
I went into online classes actually looking forward to just being, I guess, self-sufficient and not worrying about the social aspect. But the courses that I stuck with were the ones that the instructor asked you to participate in the message boards, and that actually added a lot more. I took a statistics class and there was almost no interaction, and that's the one I wasn't able to stick with. So yeah, it was interesting. It keeps your mind on it because it's easy to kind of forget that it's there unless you're always going to it.
Eileen?
I like the online classes because it's less of a distraction for me. I had a cerebral hemorrhage and I had brain surgery a few years back. So the way I learn now is different, and it's better for, I'm sorry, it's better for me, and plus, being that I'm an older learner, it's so many kids in the in-class classrooms, and they're always joking, and they're not serious, so.
Now she tells me.
And it's serious about different things. Yeah, so it's really frustrating, when I go sit in one of those classes and you have a bunch of kids that's fresh out of high school, and and it doesn't work for me. So this works for me. You
So,
know.
so you're saying that the more time that you have to respond to assignments, and you can do it on your own time, basically, and that's what's working for you?
That, it works for me. It works for me. It really does, you know, and I like that. I appreciate that, you know. And the teachers are awesome, you know. They make, you know.
Yeah, I think we have a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead and finish. Oh, you know, they have, the teachers make the online learning, you know, comfortable for me because this is my first time, you know, and I didn't know how I was gonna do. I had a fear of online classes because you hear different people saying, oh, it's not for me, and I don't, you know, it's harder than the in-class classes, but, you know, I think it depends on the individual, you know.
We do have a question, two questions, actually.
May I? For a
Yes.
second. If you do have a question, when you do have a question, would you mind raising your hand, and we will bring you a microphone so that everyone will be able to hear you and we can get you recorded.
Excellent.
Okay, so
Thank you.
you had mentioned you were frustrated with the students playing around in class and not being serious students. Do you feel that you find that on the online discussion boards, that they're not serious in their comments and what they're typing as well? Or do you feel that it's different there?
I feel that it's different.
Les?
Can I comment off of that? On the discussion board, it's in writing. You can go back to it. The professor can go back to it. It's basically the Bible. It's already been written. When you say something to somebody, you're really cautious about saying, you know, sending them a letter, what you might say in person. And so I think the discussion board is a lot more thorough and a lot more effective versus in class, because I definitely would say something to somebody in person that I would never write to them. So once it's documented, someone can bring that back, and you're like, well, I didn't say that. Actually, you did. And so I think the discussion board is actually, I haven't had any issues, and I do agree with it's my stats class right now. Nobody can communicate because they're so lost in the course. The majority of the courses, there's some excellent discussions. And again, when I can read it, reread it, and understand it sometimes, it's actually a little easier for me.
Great. Gwen, I think we had a question up here. Is that true?
Yes. Just a quick clarification. When you said distraction, you meant the younger students were distracting you? Is that what you meant when you said distraction?
Yeah.
The online classes are less distracting. You meant the online students. I mean the face-to-face students.
It's less distraction.
So I wanted to pick up on something that Eileen said. She said that your online teachers made the class more comfortable for you.
Yes.
What can online teachers do to make the online class comfortable for you? What have they done?
Humor.
Dolores? Dolores, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Oh, that was you. Oh, I'm sorry. Gotcha. Yeah, go ahead.
the emails, through emails, you know, or, you know, you can email them your question. If, like for me, if I don't understand something, you know, I want to be for sure, you know, about an assignment. So if I'm not for sure, I email the teacher and I wait for a response and, you know, for clarification. So, and it helps me. And also, you can learn from your classmates through the discussion boards, you know, because 9 times out of 10, they have the same questions that you have, you know. So with the discussion board, you're able to interact with each other and, you know, and find out, you know, the answers to some of the questions that you may have.
Gotcha. Debbie?
Yes, I found that to be exactly the same for me, being quite a bit older than most of the other students, but in a place where I actually went, this was an online university out of Virginia, which had mostly military people. I had people from all over the world in all different time frames. Their schemas, as it were, their history, their family backgrounds, people from all different walks of life and religions gave such interesting answers that I never would have thought of, having grown up, 1 in America, 2 in a different community. And so the interaction of the online student community was so much more rewarding for me because it wasn't in a regional place.
You know, I'm hearing today that we all try to plug diversity in our classrooms, but it seems to me like the online environment is diversity squared in a way, that in so many different experiences that you can come up with. I see a question back there. Yeah.
Have you folks had any experience with non-text discussion? In other words, voice thread or video discussion or recorded? What do you think of that as a way of having discussions with your classmates?
Voice thread or video discussions in your online classes?
Are you talking about real time?
Synchronous?
No, asynchronous but recorded. In other words, you post comments through a medium that records your comments either by speaking or in video.
Huh. I've never had that. I would think people would be less likely to respond because they'd be nervous about doing the video, but yeah, I haven't had that in my course.
A lot of my fellow students didn't even post their pictures for, I don't know why, anonymity maybe.
I just wanted to say I've taken online classes through @ONE where they did that, and I didn't find it useful. They were very multimedia, but I really couldn't type a lot, and I tend to say a lot. So that kind of discussion wasn't as good for me.
I'm just going to comment on the online. It's because of my major, communications, I do actually have to do a lot of speeches, and so they did get us to do one on a video, and I actually did it on a video chat with another student, and it was throwing me off a little bit, but it would end up being a pretty awesome experience because I don't know what the professor always wants exactly out of it, but that was my first time, and of course I think the majority of my professors have some kind of YouTube video, or one of them is my stats professor, he's a musician, he's in a band. And so he did a little clip on that, and that gives us a little personable, because it is, even though I enjoy the class, I still want to see some humor involved with the professors and some kind of, relation, especially since half of them are younger than me. So, getting that little feedback that they are human on there, it's a nice thing.
Question over here? Yeah.
I was wondering if you felt that you could be more, that you can disclose more to an online professor because they can't see you, versus in a classroom, because I feel like my online students I know much better than in a regular classroom. Do you feel the same way that little bit of a screen actually helps you be closer as opposed to further away from your professor?
I'd have to agree with that. I actually shared something with one of my professors who got me to come here today that I wouldn't tell the whole world about all the time, and she's opened up on a couple things, and there is that thing that, again, you may never meet them, so you're probably a little easier about saying something, or my situation when one of my papers didn't come out because we had a conflict in one of the countries, and I was dealing with something a little differently, and so to be able to talk about that, it's a good thing.
This anonymity question is deep and rich. Many of us ask our students to post pictures, for example, for their introductions at the beginning of class. And I have many, many students who refuse to do that. They do not want people to see who they are and how they look because they think that they'll be treated differently because of it. And so I just, social media, reach out. Who are you? But at the same time, there's a motivation among people who take online classes to stay in the shadows.
Joe, we have a question.
Okay.
I was going to ask if you were sure that your teacher was a woman, but... Okay, my question is there data or even anecdotal evidence about whether students spend more time working on online courses versus in-person classes? Or, because the only data I really know about is the dropout rates for online classes.
Are they worse than?
No, do students spend more time working on the class if they're taking an online class versus if they're taking it in person?
Actually, can I augment that, because that was my second big question here. I wanted to drill down for all of you really. How do you handle your online classes? That is, what is your MO? Do you spend as much time on your online classes as you do your regular classes? For example, how many days a week do you log on to the site? For how long? How do you make room for this online class in your busy lives?
Well, I had a Black Studies professor who would post, like you guys were talking about, video speeches, and they consisted of about 40 minutes, so it was hard, but I mean, you have to break it into pieces and you have to write notes, so it was kind of like being back in a class, which was harder because, you know, we take online classes because we need we have a flexible schedule, we have things to do, like I work full-time, go to school full-time, so that's why I chose online. But when you have a professor who overwhelms you with speeches and assignments and stuff like that, it's harder to, you know, get the material down and learn because you have so much to do, you don't have time to study, you're more focused on, you know, writing the notes down and whatnot. But I feel like it's more easier if the professor is, you know, clear and they're organized and they keep it short and not so long, or at least to a median length of what the assignment is and what needs to be done and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, for me, I set times. So I say, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, work in the daytime, you know, and then I have kids too, so I have to make myself available for them. So I section off a time block where I can read, study, and then have time to, you know, respond to the discussion board and, you know, what have you. But it works for me because, you know, with the time slot.
So you have to be really organized then.
Yeah.
I like the deadlines. I like the Wednesday night deadline for the first discussion, the original discussion forum being due, to give all my other fellow students a chance to reply. If the discussion forum deadline was Sunday, then how could I reply to the discussions? So giving a midweek deadline for the discussions and asking them to review certain portions, asking me to review certain portions of the material, gave me that deadline so that then I could reply to someone else's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, deadlines are definitely, I'm not sure if I like having deadlines or not having deadlines. At first, I definitely like the freedom to be able to do and then be flexible. If something was busy, I could do something later. But then you can get caught into getting behind and having to catch up. But I think for the most part, I like not having deadlines. That's like kind of the attraction of online, to be able to do work when I need to.
When you have a mandatory reply to a discussion forum, if you replied Sunday night at 10 o'clock, would that give adequate time for another 40 students to look at your discussion and to reply in 1 hour before the deadline is up on Sunday night?
Clearly it doesn't. And one thing that I've tried to do to overcome that particular problem is to say that if you log on to the discussion question on Friday, then you'll get 10 points. But if you don't do it until Saturday, maybe you'll get 8 points. If you don't do it until Sunday, maybe you'll get 6 points. And so that kind of urges them to respond a little bit earlier in the week, and that leaves time for more interaction. Do we have a question? Okay.
I'm curious, have you experienced the hybrid, fully online or the hybrid? What are your experiences with that?
Or the flipped classroom, half
any-
in class and half online? Have any of you had that experience?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I like the hybrid because I could prepare the online information, so when I came to class, I was much more knowledgeable and would get the basics out of the way. I could move to 202 discussion instead of 101 definition. You know, in knowledge learning, you know, one is definition, what's the word, tell me. You know, in knowledge learning, you have discussion, then you have comprehension, then you have, who's? Bloom's, yes, Bloom's, thank you, sorry. Bloom's taxonomy. We get rid of 1 and 2 by doing that online. Then you go to 3, you go to comprehension and on to analysis. And what I'm talking about is I preferred the analysis in class where we had back and forth discussions so they already were cognizant of the basic definitions and comprehension of material. So when we got to the classroom with the hybrid, the analysis was what really piqued my learning capabilities. Thank you.
Also, is the hybrid, if the hybrid was offered, would you be willing to take the class, or do you prefer to do the online? Because I'm curious as to what your idea is if you had the opportunity to come to campus at least once a week while you take the online courses, the hybrid version.
Well, for me, I don't stay locally. I stay kind of a distance, so it'll be hard for me to come once a week because, so.
Question over here.
This is a little bit of a different topic, but I was wondering, and I'd like to hear your honest answer on this. If there is a textbook required and content is supposed to come from that textbook, how often can you bypass that through Google searches? And is that an attractive part of taking an online class, is so you don't have to purchase books because you can find workarounds?
Actually, well, since I'm online, but now I'm actually back in class, all my books, I actually purchase them through Kindle. So it's a little easier, so I can be on 2 screens. I haven't ever, I would love stats if I could find an answer on some of the questions, but it's impossible. And so it's all coded. But I think it just actually helps you out a little bit as far as that goes. But I've never had the opportunity not to actually have a book. I mean, again, I'm using all ebooks, but it's an advantage for me that I can click on a word and the dictionary pops up.
It's a good question, and a lot of us should be getting into OER, or Open Educational Resources, which is a lot of good stuff out there, and of course it's free.
Yeah, in my I did my stat lab for statistics, and I used the online text. And when you're doing the homework, it gives you a link to go to that section of the book.
Correct.
But you couldn't keep them both open at the same time, so I was like, I wish I'd just bought the physical book so I could look at it, and it was kind of frustrating.
Yeah. Okay, question?
So from a student's point of view, do you worry about any sort of stigma from taking online classes?
Do students talk trash to you because you're taking an online class? All right.
I have not.
This gentleman has been queuing me up because really I was just having a conversation with one of my colleagues today, and one of the things that I know that we all experience are faculty members who are vehemently anti-online, right? And so I wanted to turn the question on to you. One of your friends and you are talking, and you mentioned that you're taking an online class or 2 or 3, and they tell you, you're kidding. I would never, ever take an online class in my life. And you say, what?
I've actually had that experience before, because my friend, she took online classes, and I guess her professor was like really hard on them and wanted things due like constantly every day. So she's like, you're crazy, why are you taking online classes, this. But I think it really depends on the professor and how much time you're willing to put into a certain class. Because I feel like if you have a set schedule, then it's going to be easier for you. But if you want to take an online class and you don't want to, put time into it, then it's going to obviously be more difficult, and you're going to be failing the course. So I really think it depends on, you as an individual, and then the instructor that you're choosing to take the class with.
Yeah, I would say it's not for everybody, but to give it a try at least. Take one course, and it might not be exactly what you're expecting. It might be. I don't think people see or realize the whole interactive aspect and the videos that are possible from the instructor.
We're coming very close to mid-semester, and as we were discussing earlier before you folks got here, that there seems to be a drop of energy.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. There seems to be a drop of energy right at mid-semester or a little after. So what would you like a professor to do for you to keep your energy up as you hit that midline and then towards the end of semester?
Debbie?
I think engagement from the professor is so important. I want to know that they're there for me. I want to know that I can contact them. Some of the professors didn't give me their email addresses or their phone numbers, so there was no way I could contact them. You know, and if I have a question and I post it onto Blackboard or Moodle, it might take 3 days. If I, you know, younger students want everything now, as we've seen in our courses this morning. And being more accessible gives me the support when I have a simple question, letting me know that no question is a stupid question, letting me know that, you know, if I have a problem I don't understand an assignment, can I contact you for clarification? Can I call you, even if there's a different time zone, will you let me know when you're available and be there when you say you're available? I think the engagement between the professor and the student just needs to be more accessible, and professors just need to jump into that.
I would also say that it would be a perfect opportunity to show that you are human, you are able to relate. You obviously understand that it's the halfway point of the semester or whatnot. So I think just the fact that you mention something like that and say, hey, I know it's the grind right now, but let's just push through, you know, or use humor or something to show that you'll be able to relate to them. I think from personal experience, that was enough for me to say, okay, all right, batteries are recharged again.
One of the professors, I came in early, she posted a little thing at midpoint and was being silly with the disco lights. And, but that's actually entertaining, and it is, or where our progress is. We can see our grades up there, but maybe to give us a little progress report, say, hey, you're doing great, or hey, you may think, you know, twice on the subject, but just to, you know, hey, what's up? Because in the classes we're actually in person, we're getting that response pretty quick.
You're actually addressing the touchy subject of retention, and we were talking a little while ago about how a lot more people drop out of online classes than they do from regular classes. And so some of the things you're saying here that the teachers can do to encourage more people to stay in the class, use humor, use videos, reach out, those kinds of things, work for you to stay in the class?
I think the main thing is organization. A lot of students want to have an organized class in terms of, you know, having assignments due at a certain time and giving them enough time to study and actually, you know, go over the material is important. And I think that's important.
I think also class size will also play a factor into this. Obviously, the bigger classes, you'll see there'll be students who will be engaging a lot, and I was not one of those students, so when I would see that happening, it just like, okay, they have the conversation going, I'm just going to sit back. What's that?
Be a lurker.
Yeah, exactly, I'm a lurker. I'm a ninja. But I think when you create breakout sessions within the class and essentially force conversation amongst each other, that will also get the ball rolling. We're halfway through the semester, this is the first time I've ever talked to this person, but at least you did talk to this person. And that definitely helped me out through some of my projects.
Have you all done group work online?
Right.
Yeah. Some no's?
No, I've done group work. My experience was that they weren't accountable. We started the group work, they were each given a task, and then when one or two of the group fall down, then someone else has to take a double load. I did not find it successful. Maybe it was because it was a worldwide group, different time zones, military, things like that. It probably was the nature of the business, of the content of the participant, I would say.
Welcome to life.
Yeah.
Dwayne.
You mentioned engagement and having this instructor personalize this engagement. Do you feel that should be worth points towards your grade? I know for myself, with my on-campus students, meet in the 10th week and we have a portfolio check in person in my office, and it's worth points. Now, some students don't come to that, and they lose the points. So I'm curious, do you feel in an online situation that this engagement or this follow-up to see how you're doing in the course should be worth something in terms of points towards your grade?
I think that would encourage the student to come, so I think that is a good thing. I know a lot of friends that have made a good relationship with the professor, and they're on good terms around the material, and if they're unfocused or if they need help on something, they go to their office hours when it's an online class, and I know that's helped a lot, and they have gotten points towards their grade that has actually benefited from it. So I think that's a good strategy to use.
As I say, incentives are always a bonus for all of us. Majority of my courses online, they give us points for an introduction, to tell a little bit ourselves, why we're taking the online course, and that's always great for me because people have this. I've got kids, I've got everything that everybody else has, and I'm doing this from Djibouti, and so it makes people a little shocked. Wow, so maybe my situation may be a little different. Maybe it's not that hard, and it does give some incentive, especially those extra 5 points might put you from a B to an A or a C to a B or something like that. So yeah, we like the incentives.
Yeah, for me, if I'm taking an online course, I would want it to be completely online. Like the one course I had to go and take a test at the school, and so for an online course, it's something I don't have to worry about scheduling my week. I think if there was something you would have to go and get points for it, if there were extra points, I'd be fine with that. Or if there's an alternate way to do it online and get points also, I think that would be helpful for me. Yeah.
I think there probably are online conferences that you could have similar to your portfolio check that you could build in.
I'm just curious if like I said, incentivizing is important, and so with my traditional students, they earn points towards their grade for my portfolio check. But I don't necessarily do that with my online students, and after today's presentation with Zoom, I can see where I could do something like that. Whether or not all my online students would check in if I didn't incentivize, that's the question that I think I have an answer to now.
So this is kind of hard to talk about. Believe me, it's hard to talk about for us because it gets into the vexed issue of student learning outcomes. But do you feel that after you've completed an online class, do you feel like you've learned as much as you would have in a regular class?
I definitely do. I was working on computers when we were still putting zeros and ones in, so I'm familiar with the system. And I got an A on my stats class last week. Of course, I sent my daughter the grade and everything like that. She got all excited for me because she is a math teacher. But I don't see the difference as far as there is a personal note definitely. But as far as that, when you see that grade pop up, and you get an instant result for me. I mean, you don't have to wait for 2 weeks to get your actual grade. They're posting the grades. Like I have Dr. Brewster. She's posting my grades every day, so I know where I'm at. And so for me to see that, it's great for me.
I think I've learned a whole lot more online versus being in class, because you're able to go over it, over and over again, versus being in class and asking the teacher, over and over, okay, I didn't get this, can you repeat this for me? And, and then you have the classmates, oh, she makes me sick, and, so I've learned a whole lot, and on the in the online class. So, yeah.
On that, when you're note-taking it in an actual class environment, I write horrible. And so I go back to my notes and I'm like, well, what the heck did I just write? But online, when we can look at the professor's notes and you can see that a student's posting, it's right there in writing that I actually understand. So when the professor here now in my class says, hey, I get that type, of course you can have to type. I don't even know how to write, anymore. So it works out great.
I think that's why I like unlimited time frames for quizzes and open book midterm exams and final exams. because I concentrate on the content and not the time. Oh, I've got to finish this in 20 minutes and I'm not going to give a good answer because I have a time frame. But if I have unlimited attempts and open book exam, then I'm going to study the content. I'm going to repeat the quizzes until I get them all right. Maybe I have to look at the information 3 or 4 times, but I'm going to get the information, and that seems to me to be the point.
Okay, we got 2 questions.
Okay, I'm curious, beyond the textbook information, what is your preferred method of getting content from the professor? Do you like a video? Do you prefer a slideshow with audio recording? Or do you like text with images and maybe hyperlinks? Or maybe a combination?
PowerPoint. They all love PowerPoint, and you get used to it. The military loves PowerPoint. So I've gotten very familiar with PowerPoint.
Yeah, I think definitely something with audio is helpful to at least hear the teacher's voice. So a slideshow with audio would be fine, or a video. But if it's just text, it's not as engaging, I guess. Yeah.
Video for me.
I wanted to respond to the unlimited and online quizzes. Teaching math, it kind of worries me. How do I know as a math instructor in an online class who's taking that quiz, especially if it's unlimited?
Don't we sign a agreement that we're not cheating? I mean, you could, but listen, no. You could actually pay somebody to walk into your class and look. They have no idea. I had the first professor that ever asked me for my ID when I walked in, and so to make sure that I was actually the person taking the test. That had shocked me. It was me, but I joke. My brother, we look identical, and he's a math professor. I could have had him walked in a course anytime I wanted to, and he would have done it.
Do you worry about that a lot? I mean, do you worry that you're online?
Definitely teaching math. You definitely also tutor, and I know from experience that homework is usually done not by the student.
Well, I think it depends on the content and the department.
Yeah.
For you, it might be
I think that's a big
more important.
concern.
They have a big future in conference.
We're winding down, and I want to make sure that if you have questions of these brave students about taking online classes, be sure. Folks, what is your idea of a great class? And can that great class happen online? What has to happen for you to look back on the class and say, man, that was a great class?
I think structure, there's like 3 key points: the modules, the test, and the actual homework assignments. I want it a little simple. Sometimes I'm looking through going, what are they looking for? And if they can do a great breakdown for me, and like you said, if you can get in contact with them if you don't understand the assignment, sometimes it isn't that simple when you read something. What do they want out of it? How many pictures do they want on that PowerPoint slide to give a great breakdown? Because that, especially online, especially if I'm 9 hours, 12 hours ahead of somebody, that it's easy enough for me to assimilate that I can actually, respond back.
I think the 3 main points would be communication, consistency, and organization. Those are what students are looking for professors to communicate not only the information, but make them understand what they're trying to make them do. And then I think that's important in an online course, because that's what students are looking for, is a flexible class that they get as much as they can out of it.
Communication, consistency.
And organization.
And I think clarity of expectations. So many students like myself were about the grade. I mean, I wanted to graduate magna cum laude. That was it for me. And so I needed to know that I was completing the expectations of the professor. So the SLOs needed to be really clear for each assignment. The rubrics needed to be very clear, not vague, for each. I mean, I'm a professor, so I'm looking at rubrics. I don't know if anybody else looked at rubrics in my class, but I did, So it's just the clarity of expectations matches the grade. Again, was I proficient enough to receive that grade? I think that's very important. A lot of my fellow students would ask me, oh, what grade did you get?
Okay.
Thank you for being here today. You all bring a really unique perspective that we can learn from. Looking back on the online classes you have taken, could you think about a learning activity or assignment that really stood out, like something that was a favorite to you and why?
I could comment on that one. So I think we both have the same professor for Black History. And so everybody was making a comment on the easiest location for a slave to actually escape. And I'm reading everybody's post, and then I'm thinking something totally different. So I go ahead and put my post on there, thinking I'm the idiot. And the professor actually was really good to respond pretty quick. He said, no, out of 22 students, you're the only one that got it right. And so that environment actually can go against you sometimes because you have nobody to talk to and go, I actually think it works this way better. But when you have something like that, away from that, then you're not going along with the consensus of everybody else too. So there is definitely a bonus in that.
I'm glad that you posted even though you thought you were an idiot. That's not right. I mean, you have no idea. I mean,
Believe me, anthropology is the same thing.
Yes, hi. I went through a cohort when I was going through my online education, getting a certificate in online education, and I found it extremely helpful in keeping me. I wanted to stay with that cohort. For example, there was one semester I wanted to take off the semester, but I couldn't because I wanted to stay with that cohort. I'd kind of gotten used to that group. So I'm wondering if any of you have been with a group like that, because I know you've got your master's degree, right? So if you went through a cohort, if you found that helpful, or if you think you might find that helpful as far as retention.
I found that helpful because in my cohort, they nicknamed me the baby because I was the youngest person in the program. And with that said, you understood how people worked. You already got a feel for what they expect out of you and what's the word? You know how you would work with them if you've already had experience with them. So if you wanted to take advantage of that kind of being comfortable with them, then yeah, I would say that's a great way to keep motivated and accountable with each other. Plus, I always found that they kept checking up, saying how are you doing or whatever, and that made me feel like that they cared, So instead of having to do that whole situation all over again with a different cohort, I found that having that checkup from somebody that I've started the program with and ended the program with was very rewarding.
what haven't we asked you yet that you really have a burning desire to talk about with online classes? Anything that we can talk about in terms of improvement? And yeah.
What were the worst? Tell us the worst. Tell us your experience.
I think it's just sometimes the structure, and I joked with the one professor about it, I couldn't find the assignment because it wasn't in the right location. And sometimes they have you go to their homepage and then find it. Well, choose a location and keep it there, because I get lost at times, and I don't just have your course, I have 4 other courses I'm performing. So it seems like they all do their own thing, and that's okay. There's, some are pretty funny at times what they're doing, but it's like you're digging through it, and then I have to tease back because I got 20 other students going, no, we can't find it either. It's make a structure, and this is off of Blackboard, that it's easy to find the assignments and easy to understand and easy to make some kind of contact with a person, with a professor, saying, hey, I don't understand the assignment, can you explain a little better, via an email or whatever it turns out to be. Because sometimes it is trying to find that hidden assignment, or I just got a 0 on something, which happened one time, but I wasn't the only one, because we couldn't find the actual assignment for the introduction. Nobody could actually find it. It seemed like it was embedded somewhere, and we were looking at the assignment page.
I think keep the videos short. Like I said, my Black Studies professor, he had 30-minute videos of himself talking, and it kind of gets boring after a while, just sitting there and looking at him talk. So that's the worst experience.
We've got I had the same professor. Yeah. I learned how because I don't have to look at the video, I can just hear him, so I'm cooking, listening to him, doing my own thing, and because he's still talking. And if I have to go back, if I missed the point, I can actually go back to the video. Yeah. And it was pretty funny because he's like in this room that you almost think is a basement. Yeah. And is he here today? But
yeah, I just wanted to say one thing
It's long, I can go back to it and rewind and go, what the heck did you just say? And you're not having to ask them in embarrassment. You can actually rewind it and replay it. And there is a bonus on that. But I do take the advantage that I'll do other things while I'm listening to them.
Great, thanks. I saw one last question.
Yeah, sorry, I know we're almost out of time, but I just realized one major question hasn't been asked, and that is, so a lot of publishers have certain course content that they provide. So for example, if you've ever had Connect from McGraw-Hill or MindTap from Cengage Learning or any of those types of things, does that help you or does it not? Because honestly, it's kind of pricey, and I feel like if students don't like it, I don't want to make you spend like $70 on something that you don't really like.
Any of you had that experience? Publishers' materials that are preloaded onto the course?
I've had one time, and it was pricey, and I think the professor could have actually gone with it and done her own presentation on it. I didn't think that we actually needed that link to understand that. I mean, I know if I could get.
Like which one did you have? Connect, MindTap, do you remember?
It was MindTap. Yeah, and it was all right, but it didn't seem like it actually, it questioned you to reinforce things, but I think you can do that on your own. I'm guessing there's a YouTube video out there on something like that.
Keith, Michael, Nora, Eric, Debbie, Eileen, thank you all so very much for being here today.
And I'd like to thank Joe Savdi for his excellent moderation. Thank you all for participating in the student panel, and thank you my little substitutes that got in here too. Thank you very much. Lunch is being served outside in the hot sun, but you're welcome to bring your plates in. Thank you.
Nice job, guys. Nice meeting you all.